Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. I am still flying high from our Say Yes Summit last week. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. It was just this podcast plus. It was so fabulous. I can't wait to have you join us for the next one, which is April 15th and 16th. Save the date right now. But if you've got things going on during the day and you can't just be there live for these glorious, expansive conversations, that is okay because I record them and I can send you the replay and you will not ever miss out on what's meant for you. I treasure you so much. I'm so appreciative of this beautiful thing that we're co-creating, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. And I have great, fun, expansive news. You know, I love this podcast. I know you love this podcast, and we are now going to have the opportunity to be in each other's beautiful orbit twice a week now. So beginning this week, we will be dropping our regular episode on Wednesday mornings, just like what you're listening to now. And then we will have a second episode on Fridays, which is so fun because you can listen to the podcast during the day and then you can join me on Instagram that evening while I shake up a garden-inspired craft cocktail for Favorite Fridays. It's all just so fun. So I'm so, again, grateful for you and so excited about this celebratory next step of adding an extra episode a week. And I just can't wait to have you listen to all of these beautiful conversations that I'm having, including today's guest with Lenka Schulze. She is the author of Intuition, Listening to Your Inner Voice, an intuitive guide to spirituality, finding the truth in deception. So the future that Lenka envisions for intuition is one in which it is valued highly in education. As Albert Einstein once remarked, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. Lenka's passion drives her to look for meaningful, relatable, and impactful ways as she presents the levels of intuition for both the beginning explorer and the more abstract thinker. She presents the keys to unlocking our intuition and then focuses on the steps that will support us in reaching that goal of heightening our connection and alignment with our soul. She has developed a keen sense of how humans perceive their world with their physical eyesight versus the sight of the soul. The soul's ability to see the bird's eye view gives us the potential to expand our consciousness. Expansion of consciousness allows us to gain more insight, and we are able to heal our bodies, our relationships, as well as live a life in total freedom to be. It's so good, and I cannot wait for you to enjoy this wonderful conversation with Lenka Schulze. Lenka, I am so thrilled to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go ahead and just dive right into the question I ask all of my guests, And that is, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Yes to yourself. I really like your topic because there's just so much no's out there. Um, I like to say yes to our sovereignty, to yes to our divinity, because we forget all about that. We are so human, which is great. And we're escaping so much into the world of the technology, but we forget our sovereignty. And I want to make sure that people say yes to that. And for sure, for me, to reminding myself, because it's not easy to find, even when you're Googling or just like the feeds comes in, it's not that much about that topic easily available.
Right. And there's something so beautiful about the way that you present that. And even with your gorgeous accent, it makes me feel like my divinity and sovereignty is closer.
Maybe the blouse and my
It's the blouse
the cup with all that beautiful nature, maybe that's it.
and your beautiful energy and everything. It speaks so much, the way that you present yourself and the way that you show up in a space is so in alignment and in tune with what your message is, what your book is about, what everything that you are offering in the world. It's very integrated.
Thank you, Wendy. That's just such a kind words.
It's really true. I mean, we've known each other for 4 minutes, and that's what I can already tell about you. So it is authentic, it is genuine coming to me, and I believe genuinely received.
Thank you.
So, how are you owning your sovereignty, your divinity on the daily when we can't log into a Zoom call, or when some other outside force is knocking us off of our game?
It is not easy, I must say, because like the daily life that just plainly just living day in, day out doesn't remind us of our essence, of our divinity. So I feel when I try to have constant reminders, and the nature symbolism really brings me closer to it, just because there's nothing in the world that can create bee or a flower or a rainbow to that level that it just takes your breath away. Every time, I mean, I live in Florida, so when I see dolphin jump out of the water, if I mean it's a split second, but that split second, it is this joyous moment that it's the divinity speaking, like touching me, like being in me. But I don't see dolphins all the time, so I realize when I starve, like I am starving, and I think majority of the
Mm,
people are like not physically starving, but like our soul is like kind of off, and you're
yes.
feeling like I want something. I'm chasing. I'm looking. Then
Mm,
I stop. Like, okay, now it's time to regroup and go
yeah.
back into this soul nourishment. So the nourishment on a soul level, I find, like I said, nature probably first, and then books and conversations like this, which I don't have enough,
Right.
honestly. So many people are living in the world on the other side, again, too much of the humanness.
Mm,
And yeah, so it is something that we can fill in. It's a void. Could definitely
right.
be filled in.
Right. I love that. And I love just the reminder of when we are feeling disconnected, when we are feeling separated, that is our clue. Obviously, we would like to make that a practice so that we don't get depleted for that, the sensor light to go off and say, oh, this needs attention now. How are you finding, you're connecting to nature, but how are you finding ways to keep up this practice and to we know that connection is the answer, and yet I feel like culturally all roads lead to isolation, and I
Mhm.
don't I feel like that, well, I don't feel like, I believe that isolation is a trap. It keeps us thinking that we're the only one that feels a certain way, and that when we are connected in community through conversation, through really expansive conversations like these, that we are reminded of our oneness. And that is certainly something that connects us to our divinity.
Mhm. There's a lot of topics right in that couple sentences or 3, 4 sentences you mentioned. I believe that the in isolation, if that's the one thing that jumped out of that on me, isolation is a word that has negativity to it, but being alone doesn't mean being lonely, you know?
Exactly.
I love my quiet time.
Hmm.
And I don't feel alone, but I also crave my fellow beings as well. So I feel like when we fill up our bucket and we have our bucket full of whatever that is, the soul is just so excited to share. That is when I think we are created like that. We are created
Yes.
to share what brings us joy. And if we don't, it's kind of like a flower just wilted. Like the flower's looking for the bee. It's just so
Right.
beautiful, wants to share with everyone. Look at me, look at me. I am so beautiful. Smell me, touch me. That's how we are. And so we have that in our nature. And how to keep that going, I think going through the book that I wrote is about intuition, which is a language of our soul. So divinity is something that you cannot necessarily touch, right? But it's there, just like love.
Yes.
And intuition is the soul communication
Mm.
through that realm of divinity. So when you are sensing the intuitive senses, and it could be anything from survival to that multidimensional to the universal, and you get the taps of that whisper, that is intuition. That is the divinity trying to touch you or express through you. And if we just kind of step aside and we allow that to come through us all the time, we become very magnetic. Like people are like, oh,
Yes.
what is she doing? It's like that scene from Harry Met Sally. I'm not gonna say,
Yes.
but it's like, what does she have? I
Right.
want.
I'll have what she's having.
Yes. Yes. So I feel the same way. Like people are like, what is she doing? Or what is she reading? Or what she's up to because she seems happy or she is really
Right.
joyous. And we have that realm around us. It's not like you have to fly to Himalayas or just go to a yoga retreat. You really don't have to do that. It's
Right.
fun. It is like fun to explore, but you don't have to. People think that there's somewhere else.
Yes. So, how do you help people bring that into their everyday practice?
Desire has to be first. If somebody
Mm.
comes in and they don't have a desire for what I hope exude, because sometimes people can't even handle being around me because it's just like
Right.
so much,
Mhm.
then I can help them. But if people are having that first ingredient, which is desire, then it's really easy. You have to meet them where they are. If it's starting with a good food, bringing flowers into their house to celebrate their existence, that's where we start. If it's some kind of a juicy, spiritual, soul-filled books, we can go there. So I meet person where they are. I'm not going to give them some high voltage soul lessons if they are in a survival state.
Mm, right.
Not everybody
Yeah.
wants the souffle. Sometimes they just want a caramel.
Right.
It's like depends on where that soul is on that evolution process. But desire, I believe it's first. We need to have that. Okay, I'm done with whatever. I want something else.
Right. And I think so much of that, of course, requires intuition, but also to trust that desire is trustworthy, that it's quote unquote okay. I feel like culturally we have been primed to not desire, to not want, because if you don't want anything, you'll never be disappointed, which is like, so why would I ever sign up for that? But I lived so much of my life just not wanting and being happy with what found me or happy with what I had, and that dreaming had a segment of time, it would be appropriate if you were lying on the grass and looking at the clouds and imagining there are animals, but how often are you actually going to even do that? But dreaming had a place, and then you would, quote unquote, come back to reality and put your dreams aside when it sounds like your work and everything that is in my heart as well is to normalize this dreamy desire, tapping into what's actually available for us, saying yes to ourselves, being in a place where we are willing to let life be amazing and magical and everything that we want, and not feel so tethered to hard work or efforting or drama or trauma or any of it.
Yeah. You had so many amazing words that I wrote them down so I don't forget. One of them is you said trust. Trust is a big component to our intuition, because if we don't trust ourselves, we do not trust the world. We don't trust anything that's coming to us or through us. So that is also creating self-worth, because I trust what came through, or I trust my guidance, or I trust my moves. Then it's when that worked out great, like, oh, yes, I am worthy. And then that brings that self-esteem, the steam behind yourself. Then you have already that charisma moving forward. Then you were saying desire. If we don't have desires, I believe that we are devolving, we're not evolving. And it's okay, in the beginning of our life, we are all narcissists. It's like the little babies, me, mine, mine, mine. And it's okay to desire things for yourself. And if you don't, what is this life about? Because desires creates change. The change is evolution. And so hopefully when we are expanding in our consciousness, we go from me to we, and our desires go more global. And when you were saying the imagination, pretty much every physicist and scientist and anyone who created anything in this world have been using these dreams. Without dreams and imagination, we wouldn't have what Einstein created, or Michelangelo, or even your bed and breakfast. I mean, it wouldn't exist if you haven't had that vision. However, these dreams are in the ethers, right? So they're not tangible. We have to bring them down on earth. That's the fun thing about being humans. It's like, let's play with that, actually, that nitty gritty soil and sand and wood and rock and flowers, and start creating, because we are creative beings. And that's what makes us part of that divine essence, because divine, that that core word is belonging to God, right? So if we belong to God, God creates. That means we are just a miniature mini beings that can create too. If it's a flower arrangements, making great meal, that starts from trusting, I wrote it down, desiring, and then I believe the evolving. If we don't do any of this, and I don't know why we here, honestly. And I really admire you for all the things you say yes to, like, and
Thank you.
the bed and breakfast and the trips to France and all the things that you're offering. It's very selfless. It's like, I have so much people come and check it out and enjoy this, because there's just so much more than I can even handle. Like, that is just wonderful. If everybody would do that at just a little bit, it's just a meal, invite friends over, or just because, our world would be so much better. We can start with little things.
I agree. And thank you for seeing me, because I do just, the moment that I stepped on the property at the Phineas Wright house, I just imagined people walking on the lawn with a glass of champagne in their hand. And it has always been too much goodness for one family. And I love sharing it. And I also want more. I want the land that's next to it. It was originally a 50-acre parcel when the house was built in 1785. I want that too. I want property in France. I want these things because I just want more guest rooms and a longer table. I want to share these beautiful places, these beautiful spaces that are anchored in history and promote transformation to what is in our future. And I feel like I am a steward, a trustee of these properties, and a tour guide of the transformation. And it is so beautiful and expansive and dreamy and delightful. And I can't believe that it's my life. And it requires another person saying yes to themselves, or else I'm just a girl with a big house.
Yeah. And I think it's a magnetic thing. If you have that genuinely in, people can sense, I think the new currency coming in,
Mm,
where integrity and honesty will be the currency. It's not going to be
yes.
about the flashy and then the phony, because everybody can, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have something that they want to show off, but not share. It's kind of like,
Mm.
I had, when I was growing up and I was much younger, I remember sometimes going to people's homes and they would open, it's kind of silly. I don't know why I'm saying this, but it would be like they open up their bar and all these fancy bottles and they close it and they go to the fridge and get a cheap wine.
How bizarre. Yes,
It's
but
like,
I hear what you're saying.
yeah, they want to show off but not share. So
Mm,
I could like, I genuinely feel from you too is that there is something so beautiful you want to share, and traveling, going to see somebody else's creation. I mean, that's just wonderful because it just grows and people spread that joy because they get inspired by your movie
yes.
and they can do it in their home. You don't have to have a huge house.
Nope.
I mean, bed and breakfast in Europe. I mean, some people just literally kind of open up their house and
Right.
share what they have.
Well, and it's essentially what I've done because I was looking for a larger bed and breakfast when I first moved here. And my ex husband was looking for not a bed and breakfast. So we bought this house that was just a house. And then as soon as he moved out, I turned it into a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
So it is really
Yeah.
just sharing that space, sharing my life, sharing this dreamy goodness that I imagined, that I 100% manifested into my experience before I knew any of those words or knew what I was doing. Now I'm much more intentional about bringing what I see in the ethers, as you mentioned, into my physical reality, and being a co-creator with the divine.
And did you even realize that, because I looked you up and
Yes.
you did a wedding, you are a wedding planner and you also host weddings on your property,
Yes.
which is fascinating because you actually anchoring love into the soil and
Mhm.
that the
I
trees
love
and
that.
everything. Yeah, yeah, seriously, because think about it. If we have a land and we actually, like you said, we take care of it and we offer things for celebration. It's a ceremonies, just like the Native
Yes.
Americans did, right? So you're doing ceremonies of people loving each other, and then all the families are coming and enjoying it. So you anchoring love into the soil over and over and over. That's what actually really, it's like a pillar of light that is just like beaming out, and it just creates almost like a strength in that. It's like the neuroplasticity in your brain. So we have the
Yes.
same thing with the actions or ceremonies that we do.
Mm.
It's just actually grows in strength, and the love is getting to be more anchored. So that's some other ideas for people they can do too. It's like use your backyard for celebrations.
That is so beautiful. I just wrote that down. When everyone sees that new in my bio, they'll know that it's from
Yes.
you. I love
Yes.
that. I love anchoring love into the soil and the beauty of repetition and how we can all bring that into our life. Whatever we want more of, we are creating many versions of that into our daily life. Whether if we're feeling like, oh, that's nice for Wendy and her farm and nice for Lenka, she's fancy and an author and all these fabulous things, and they wonder how they can do it themselves. I think if choice is something that you're feeling like you don't have enough of, you
Mhm.
can practice those things. What do I want to choose to eat tonight? What do I want to choose from this menu? Which route do I want to take to the grocery store or to school pickup, instead of doing the same thing the same way over and over and not being happy about that? We can shift because we actually have so much agency and so much choice. And we are often the last girl to that party.
Yes, and you making really good points. Changes sometimes are really subtle. Like if you wake up on the right side of the bed, go on the left side. If you take in a shower in the mornings, take it in the evenings. Completely change things up around your world. Make a goulash out of your life a little bit, and then take the ingredients out and see which ones are still relevant. Really,
Right.
that's kind of like, it's like we are part of like a salad. I was telling it to my daughter, and like, it's just part of like a salad. And sometimes we need to just take the vegetables out of the salad to see which ones still we like to eat or be part of. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but that shift of consciousness really does
Yes.
happen because you start taking a charge of your life with those little things, and you're really serious when action comes with after those dreams, right? So the dream is one thing,
Yes.
it's the ether, but then we have to have that physical action, and then we have to have a discipline and all the other ingredients is, and it sounds like again step by step, and I don't really like to do step by steps, but
Mhm.
it does take a time to reprogram ourselves. And
Right.
depends what time of your life you are in, but if you are in those 40s/50s and you have that alarm clock going, I call it the cosmic alarm clock, that it
Hmm.
just goes on, and you push the snooze button, trust
Yes.
me, later on it's going to be worse. So just
Right.
say yes to the universe, and it's time to give yourself new birth, because when you were born,
Yes.
we all had something, right? I mean, we had that family, that mom, that town, that education, and we didn't have that much choice in that. We had to
Mhm.
go through those steps. But now, like you're saying, you are now an adult and you can make your own choices. You can give yourself new birth. But just
Right.
like the birthing process is 9 months and the birth canal is really hard to go through, just have patience, have compassion with yourself,
Hmm.
and don't lose the goal on that vision. Like, what do you really want?
Right.
And the intuition will serve you because the feelings, will start coming in. Would chase the joy. Just
Yes.
that's really the GPS. If there's that whole how much money I'm gonna make, or how popular it's gonna be, how many likes I'm gonna get, that is not the GPS to follow. That
Correct.
it will not bring you happiness at all. Like
Right.
I like to bring back to that awareness. When you bring that joy in you, it's magnetic and will
Yes.
attract people. It just really,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier neuroplasticity, and I understand that, but can you explain it for our listeners and how these shifts in action create new pathways for
Mhm.
us?
So anyone who has a children, or at least had children, they know you have a 10-year-old and you still have to tell them, go brush your teeth. So it's, you would think after 10 years they'll get it, but they don't. They still will not do it. And so when we doing something over and over and over and over, we'll create this kind of a habit, right?
Mhm.
But in our brain, we creating these connections, and I'm making really simple because you can
Sure.
Google some really fancy explanations, but I don't need to throw fancy words here, but it's just these connections in the brain. Every single time you go brush your teeth, it becomes a habit. So let's just say that you graduated with brushing your teeth and you do want to make a habit for yourself to create something better. Let's just say, I don't know, I'll give you an example. When I had this vision that I would be a professionally utilizing intuition. I didn't know what the heck would that mean even, but I had this vision. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go there. And there's so many avenues how, you could do tarot, you could do pendulum, you could do remote viewing, you could channel, like you could do many things. So it's not that clear, but I was chasing the joy. I was picking up the books, listening to podcasts, whatever was going on at that time. And I just honed it down to medical because I was always very fascinated with health and just overall good well feelings. So I became a medical intuitive. And I got it to the level of working with a medical doctor. So that's kind of what I was saying, is that I never left my vision and my habits. I
Right.
constantly was bathing myself in that quantum field of
Mm-hmm.
whatever was resonating with that word: intuition, medical, health, nutrition, and I studied and do a lot of physical things besides just having the dreams. And then
Right.
you have to have a practice and trust. Working with intuition on behalf of someone else, that takes a lot of trust because you never
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to come out. Do you want going to understand it? Am I explaining it correctly? So all of these things that you have to trust in yourself, and you trust in that divine essence that whatever's coming through will be in service to others. So that's in a nutshell what neuroplasticity is. It is in the brain, neurons firing and sticking together more and more and more, and creating on a physical level more that habit.
Yes, and we can create a new pathway. So if we have a habit that we are it's no longer serving us, we can change our habits, but it starts with changing our thoughts. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So as you change your thought, it becomes a belief, and that solidifies your habits. And you can do that at any point in
Mhm.
your life, in your journey. We're just going to call that a course correction. And everyone has choice to do that as well.
Yes, I think the ingredient in the beginning is awareness. You cannot change something you are not aware of.
Right. And have a desire to
And desire.
shift.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm. Yes. So if
Right.
you don't have the awareness, you have the desire. The awareness will come because the
Mhm.
desire will be answered.
Yes. Yes.
And it's never ending. I believe that we are students of life, and we will be peeling that onion skin until the last breath we take, honestly. And that's a fantastic way to exist because new things constantly comes up.
I believe that. And I believe that our dreams get louder. And
Mhm.
and they're constantly evolving. As you mentioned, we're made in the image of God. He's the creator. He didn't just create one thing. We have dream after dream after dream after dream, and they all pile onto each other in this beautiful way that is actually the next logical step for us.
Yep. And I also found out that just by my simple observation is energetically, where I see people coming with anxiety,
Mm,
it's so much that the soul wants to express.
right.
It's like a pressure cooker. There, in a pressure cooker, there's so many ideas, so many things, so much energy, and the pressure cooker wants to just like explode. So when we realize that anxiety is just too much energy that needs to express itself, and it's going to be more manageable, but not be afraid to take the lid off and
Right.
put in the pot. Sometimes it things that
Right.
doesn't belong there any longer. But a couple things, like you said, could be creative. But if we don't do that, I really truly believe as a creative beings is that if we don't express our creativity, it will actually implode in us. That's
Mm.
kind of where that depression comes in and all the other things. Because we become angry, that anger is not expressed because that's not comfortable for others to be around angry people. So we just push it down to depression. And so we just walking around depressed because we didn't really expand it or express ourselves. So, and whatever reason we tell ourselves, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have a platform, I'm not educated, whatever. It's just all
Mhm.
BS, belief systems. We can change.
Yes. 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 How are you finding your work as a medical intuitive joined together with these, like you said, emotions that we're suppressing? And how are those playing out in physical ways with dis-ease in our body?
I don't practice medical intuition anymore.
Okay.
However, I enjoy teaching others how to do it. I kind of figured that it was not, for me, it was not aligned with my truth anymore. I would
Mhm.
like other people tap into their own intuition
Yes.
and figure out really what is wrong with them versus going to the third party.
Right.
And it's just disempowering versus I'm
Mhm.
going to show you or tell you or guide you to find out on your own. And I think there's just so much juice in there, or like again the self-worth, the trust,
Right.
because you start trusting yourself.
Right.
And so how do I do that? Like I said, I really like to teach others how to do this, and
Mhm.
I believe that being on that whole health intuitive mindset, it's never off. It's never turned
Right.
off. It's always on because we are like a divine tool, where if something doesn't feel right, we will feel it and we can adjust.
Yes.
Well, that is really medical intuition if you think about it.
Right.
If you ignore it, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and that will cause dis-ease. But dis-ease, it's not something that happens overnight. It usually takes time because we have more bodies, not just the physical. We have mental, emotional, and spiritual. So when we become diseased, it still always starts over here in the spiritual. Then it gets into the mental and emotional, and the emotional then becomes felt in our body, and we don't like it.
Sure.
So then we start looking around where we can go to feel better, and we're looking for the third party to give us
Mhm.
something or do something, to get the dis-ease off. So I feel that if we look at these diseases more in an aspect of communication, it could tell us so much about what's going on. Sometimes it could be a relationship that makes you diseased, right? But you
Mhm.
constantly in that relationship and it's just so close to you,
Right.
you cannot even imagine not being with that person. It's like having a head in a beehive and the bees are stinging you and you don't even know it. It's like, what's
Right.
stinging me? Well, you don't see it because your head is in the beehive. So sometimes you have to have guts really to like get further away and see the bird's eye view. And it's not about labeling people good or bad. I don't believe in.
Right.
It's not about polarization. It's about growth. It's about
Mm.
what resonate. If we see that that particular person, the job situation doesn't resonate, that means you're going against your nature. It's like going back to nature.
Right.
Nature works.
Yes.
Nature just doesn't need how-tos. It just knows. It's a divine intelligence. I believe we are part of that divine intelligence. We just need to know how to communicate with it because we forgot. We put in the
Mm.
third parties into our life
Right.
thinking that they know better. No, they
Yeah.
don't. They have the same issues you do. Trust me.
Right.
They're just practicing on you.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, if that works, oh, maybe I'll try it too. But I think if we go back into our nature, there's just so much wealth of information and trusting. There's I don't know who said this quote, but if you want to understand more about life, just look at nature. Just that is
Mm,
pretty much everything you need to know. It's the answers are right there.
yes. Yes. And I love so much of your work seems to be centered on not outsourcing our agency and not outsourcing this information. Of course, we may seek guidance on how to develop our intuition and how to trust it, but nothing works faster than creating that practice yourself.
Mhm. Yes, experience.
Mhm.
One of the most intuitive people are nurses, police officers, stockbrokers. They have to act like really quick. They don't have a luxury of let me look at the book, what step by step I have to take to make that deal or save a life.
Right.
Also, people who had a really hard childhoods, they have to
Mm,
survive. It's very fascinating because they gain something that the people who live in a cotton balls, I call it, um,
yeah.
they don't have that.
Mhm.
They think the whole world is cotton balls, right? But the ones who had to survive, they have to trust one thing, and that's
Yeah.
themselves.
Right.
And they trust themselves so much they will not trust anything or anyone else, only if it resonates with their truth, with their intuition, with their
That's right.
soul. That is
That's
just
right.
something that is fascinating, honestly. And of course, if that particular person stops surviving and start evolving, wow, that becomes a
Exactly.
great recipe for evolution beyond senses.
Yes, yes, and yes. I love that word picture because often if we've got someone who grew up in a very survival mindset, it seems like culturally we want to teach them to trust everybody else when that is not going to necessarily be in service to them. We want to help them keep that internal practice, but trust that good is what is meant for them
Mhm.
instead of something that is really scary and you have to be on high alert. So what do you think the tipping point is to shift from that high alert looking for the exit at all times? How does that transition to something that is truly evolutional?
Desire. I was just watching. I don't watch sports. I
Right.
just don't. I just
Same.
do my soul books. But
I'm
it,
too busy. Right.
yeah, my husband
Can't
was
watch
watching
TV.
some. Yep, I was. My husband was watching something, and I was captivated. Like literally, I sat down, dropped everything, and I was glued to this TV. And they were talking about this gentleman. I believe his name was Yanis. I will not even try to pronounce his last name, but he was from Greece and he was a basketball player and he got drafted into NBA, into Milwaukee, and they call him a Greek freak. In it is an embraced, so it's not
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
negative way. But his story was so fascinating because he was born in Nigeria and his family emigrated to Greece. And he had two, I believe, two brothers, mom and dad. And they did not live an easy life. He was saying that he was in fear of being beaten or even die on the street from bullying and so on and so forth. But today, I mean, if we would Google him, what an inspiration. And his story is just, I still replay it in my mind because it was so wonderful. He said that the only thing he could come up with is this sport is the ticket out. And he made it all the way here. And his whole family was able to come. And what a story. And it was not a victimhood. It was none of that.
No,
It was gratitude and evolution.
right.
Really. So it's like it's a perfect example, if that makes sense, is that coming.
No, it is. I've seen the movie.
Oh,
So I
okay.
know exactly what you're talking about. It
Oh,
was one
yay.
of the rare times I actually watched TV as well. So
Okay.
it's so fascinating that we had that in common. But yes, you're right. And I love that is such the picture that it is desire that is what turned the key. Because
Yeah.
what we would look at from, living in a first world economic system, looking on other people that have different living situations and projecting how awful that would be for us and thinking how that would just be I couldn't even get out of bed if that was my existence. And he could only see where he was going, and it was not staying in that place where for us I think it's really hard to wrap our head around it because we would be going backwards to be in that space. And yes, desire is the key. And I love that so much because a part of what I do in the sharing of my dreamy life is holding space for women who are holding space for themselves and giving them space to dream and to hold that dream out in the open for as long as they can stand it, really, and to put water and sunshine on it and give it some roots and let it grow. So then when they go back to their homes, whether they've been with me in France or spent a few days at the bed and breakfast, that dream has grown and that they have seen and experienced possibility.
Mhm. Yeah, I like it. And when you were saying this, I had this thought in my head that I heard somewhere. You can judge a country by their mothers.
Ooh.
And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, where are we with our motherhoods here, especially in this evolved country, if you want to call it? I don't know. I come from
Mm-hmm.
Europe, and European countries allow moms or dads, they
Mm-hmm.
just depends, to stay home with their children.
Right.
Certain countries have a certain amount of time. You have a 1 year, 3 years, whatever. And it's your choice. Some countries, if you want to go back to work because you really liked it, then the dad can stay home, or
Mm-hmm.
your grandma. But certain countries don't even have a daycares because it's so important to invest
Right.
in the family. The first 7 years of life is the most crucial time for the development. But if the mom is stressed out, the whole dynamics of the families go down. And if we
Right.
multiply the families by millions, where's the country if these women are not nurtured, taken care of on these basics, which is, like you said, holding space, sit in the garden, read a book, smell the flowers, simple things. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
shopping in Saks Avenue. It really doesn't.
Right.
It actually doesn't fill a lot of people's lives. It's just a
Right.
simple in life that we are missing. And if we can have time, as a women, as a moms, grandmas, sisters, if we can just hold each other in that space, that's just would change the whole dynamics of this country.
I could not agree more. And
Mhm.
I have so much to say, and it would be 4 more podcast episodes. So we can wrap it up there. I have loved this conversation, Linka. I so appreciate you and your wisdom and availability to share this message in such an inviting way.
Mm.
Thank
Yeah.
you for being here. Please tell everyone where they can find and follow you, where they can get the book, all the good things.
So I would like to thank you too, because you allow me to share my vision for saying yes to our divinity and our sovereignty. And I believe that without that, we will run short in our beautiful
Mm.
existence. So it's very important. And I think you're doing so much for the humanity with whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's see, where you can find me. Very easy, actually. I'm trying to make it really easy. Lenka.org, Lenka.org. Everything's there, just kind of like a hub for everything. I have my latest book, Intuition, Listening to Your Inner Voice, that is available on Amazon. And I have Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and all the other things, but I'm just starting out. So I'm just smelling the flowers still at this point and enjoying the conversations. So if you are interested in connecting with me, everything is on lenka.org.
Perfect. And we'll link everything down in the show notes. And I love your approach to expansion and evolution. It is beautiful, it is aligned, it is feminine, it is attractive, it is magnetic, and you will not miss out on everything that's meant for you. Thank you so much, Lenka. I look forward to chatting again.
Thank you, Wendy.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.